They called him the Law of Dodge City, a towering peacekeeper who could stare danger down with a single glare, but off-camera, James Arness was one heated argument away from bolting the set and shutting Gunsmoke down for good. For 20 seasons the series defined what a TV Western could be, yet behind the saloon doors simmered rivalries, health battles, and network politics that threatened to yank the show off air more than once. One co-star even claimed Arness showed up late so often that a fistfight felt inevitable. Why did the mild-mannered Marshal inspire that kind of fury? And how did a last-minute casting swap keep the role from going to Hollywood's biggest cowboy of all time? Over the next few minutes we'll crack the Frontier facade wide open. You'll hear how a single confrontation in a dusty makeup trailer rewired the show's entire chemistry, how a smoking gun memo from CBS nearly killed the series until a castaway comedy unexpectedly saved it, and why the phrase "get the H*** out of Dodge" leapt from script pages into everyday slang. We're tracing Gunsmoke from its humble radio static in 1952 to the day its cast discovered, through a gossip column no less, that their record-breaking run was over. If you thought the streets of Dodge were dangerous on screen, wait till you see what happened when the cameras stopped rolling. Lock your saddle in place, because before tempers exploded, a completely different legend almost rode off with Matt Dillon's badge. Ready to ride deeper? Gunsmoke began as nothing more than a voice echoing across American living rooms in 1952, a gritty half-hour radio drama that made listeners imagine the dust of Dodge City. 3 years later the Frontier leapt from sound waves to small screens, but producers didn't just copy and paste. They gambled, compressed the same hard-edged stories into a tight, black-and-white half-hour television slot and hope audiences followed. They did, by the millions. Yet ambition kept pushing. By 1961 the show doubled its length to a full hour. By 1966 it burst into living color, a rarity for westerns at the time. Viewers could suddenly see the blood-red sunsets and iron-gray gun barrels they'd only pictured before, proof that Gunsmoke would evolve rather than age. Ironically, Hollywood's ultimate cowboy almost carried that first badge. Columbia asked John Wayne to play Matt Dillon. The Duke loved the script but couldn't squeeze it between film shoots. Instead, he recorded a televised endorsement introducing his friend James Arness, a gesture that felt like royalty handing over the crown. Corporate America joined the posse, too. For the first 7 seasons, L&M Cigarettes bought prime sponsorship and wove suave tobacco plugs into the breaks, turning Marshal Dillon into a weekly sales pitch for just what the doctor ordered. Format changes, star endorsements, and sponsor dollars created a juggernaut that outran fickle trends. But glossy new cameras couldn't hide what simmered in the wings, rising tension between the show's iron-willed physician and its laid-back lawman. Behind the Technicolor upgrade, a showdown was coming, and it wouldn't be staged. Milburn Stone spent 3 years biting his tongue as James Arness wandered in late, cracked jokes with crew, and never once offered a sorry. Stone, steeped in theater discipline, saw each delay as a bullet hole in the show's credibility. Finally, one sweltering afternoon, he snapped. Storming into Arness's dressing room, the actor known to millions as Doc Adams unleashed a diagnosis harsh enough to stop a stampede. "I've read my contract," he growled, "and nowhere does it say I have to diaper you. Show up late again and you'll have 2 things to explain, where you were, and where I went." Crew members braced for a brawl. Arness stood 6'7", a former Marine who'd survived a battlefield leg wound. Stone stood his ground anyway. What happened next still amazes witnesses. The towering star simply locked eyes with Doc, nodded, and said, "You're absolutely right." No sarcasm, no pushback, just a startling moment of humility that flipped the script. The tension bled out of the room like air from a punctured canteen, and a cautious respect took root. That single confrontation rerouted the show's chemistry. Stone's insistence on punctuality tightened production days, while Arness's easy humor kept spirits from curdling into resentment. Their push-pull dynamic seeped onto the screen. The curt physician and the patient lawman felt real because behind the camera, both men had earned every ounce of that relationship. Viewers sensed the crackle even if they never knew why it sparked. Yet time would test this fragile truce in ways no dressing room showdown could predict. As the seasons piled up, both legends discovered that frontier grit couldn't outdraw failing bodies. One heart attack, one relentless case of arthritis, and a filming schedule bent to keep the badge shining. By season 11, fans still saw Marshal Dillon mount his horse with effortless swagger, but arthritis was gnawing at James Arness like a coyote on an old wound. Producers engineered a survival hack: cram every Dillon scene into one marathon shoot day, then send the star home for a full week of rest. Arness limped through 12-hour Fridays, poured ice on a war-scarred leg, then returned 7 days later as if nothing hurt. Viewers never guessed the Iron Lawman needed that much armor to outrun pain. The town doctor wasn't immune either. In 1971, Milburn Stone collapsed with a heart attack that sidelined him for 6 episodes, the only time Doc Adams truly abandoned Dodge. Surgeons patched the real-life physician, and Stone fought his way back, thinner but unbowed, vowing never again to let poor health steal his stethoscope. His reappearance felt like a frontier resurrection. Ratings even ticked upward as worried letters flooded CBS mailbags. Tragedy hit harder in 1973 when Glenn Strange, bartender Sam and former Frankenstein, passed away after nearly a decade on the show. The Long Branch Saloon lost its gentle giant, and cast morale sank, yet scripts kept rolling. That's the quiet brutality of weekly television. Grief gets one table read before the camera's red light blinks. For a lesser series, these blows would have spelled a ride into the sunset. Gunsmoke answered with grit, rewrite schedules, tighten scripts, film around wheelchairs if needed, but keep Dodge alive. Behind each polished shootout stood nurses, painkillers, and sheer stubborn pride. The show wasn't just a Western anymore, it was a testament to endurance. Still, no amount of stamina could shield Gunsmoke from the bullets of network politics. In 1967, another CBS hit, set on a goofy tropical island, would decide whether Dodge City lived or died. May 1967, deep inside CBS's Manhattan HQ, executives drew an X through Gunsmoke on the fall grid and penciled in a goofy tropical sitcom called Gilligan's Island. The memo leaked, and Western fans went ballistic. Congressional aides fielded phone calls, newspaper columns roasted city slicker programmers, and even the network chairman's golf buddies begged him to reconsider. Faced with a prairie-sized backlash, CBS performed the quickest about-face in primetime history, booting poor Gilligan to TV limbo and sliding Gunsmoke back into its Saturday berth. Dodge City had just been rescued by a stranded castaway, proving that fan loyalty could lasso corporate suits as tightly as any posse. Yet the reprieve came with silent strings. Westerns were bleeding ad dollars, anti-violence watchdogs grumbled about Dillon's opening gunfight, and variety shows were cheaper to film. 8 seasons later, in 1975, the axe finally fell, without so much as a funeral tune. Cast members learned of the cancellation by reading Variety over breakfast. No farewell montage, no last ride script. The final episode aired like any other, ending on a routine fade-out the actors hadn't realized was goodbye. Still, the numbers refused to fade. 20 seasons, 635 episodes, an output so colossal that even The Simpsons needed 28 years to top it. And the lingo lingers, get the H out of Dodge, once barked at black hat villains, became everyday shorthand for leaving trouble fast. In pop culture's dusty memory, Dodge City still echoes with spurs and catchphrases. But what does a record even mean if the people who built it never got to tip their hats on the way out? Before we ride off, let's weigh the true legacy of TV's longest-running Western, and why its backstage scars matter as much as its shootouts. The tale of Gunsmoke isn't really about gunfights, cattle rustlers, or even Dodge City. It's the story of a cast and crew who traded comfort for continuity, who limped, argued, sweated, and still showed up when the red light blinked. James Arness packed a week's worth of pain into one brutal shoot day so fans never saw the limp. Milburn Stone rewrote the rules of set etiquette with a single tirade that turned friction into fellowship. Glenn Strange poured drinks for Dodge until life itself called cut. Even a shipwrecked sitcom once pulled the show back from oblivion, proving that a loyal audience can be louder than a boardroom full of suits. Yet the network's silent acts reminds us that in television, just as on the frontier, goodbyes aren't always ceremonious. One day the posse simply disbands, the saloon doors stop swinging, and the dust settles without warning. Still, Gunsmoke fired off a record 635 episodes, coined a phrase that teenagers shouted for decades, and showed future series that adaptation is the real survival skill. So the next time you hear "Get the H out of Dodge," remember the arthritis hidden under Marshal Dillon's badge, the heart attack Doc Adams vanquished, the island comedy that saved a Western, and the newspaper headline that blindsided a devoted cast. Behind every iconic frame lies a messier, far more human reel of perseverance. If you grew up on Saturday night showdowns or discovered them long after the trail dust settled, tell us, what's your favorite Gunsmoke moment, on screen or off? Drop your story in the comments, hit that subscribe badge for more untold TV histories, and ring the bell so you never miss the next legend we drag into the light. Until then, ride steady. And keep an ear out for the tales still echoing in Dodge.